Welcome to another episode of Insight TV, Signals from the Non-Conscious. At Insight TV, we take a look at the most recent findings in contemporary neuroscience as they relate to leadership development and organizational change. Your hosts are myself, Paul McFadden, and Lori Ellington. And just for a quick little context around today's episode, we'll be doing a phone interview today. Now I'm going to turn it over to Lori, who will talk to you a little bit about the show we have in store for you.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. We're here today because many of the discoveries in neuroscience that we share and integrate into our work actually come from an international research organization known as the NeuroLeadership Institute. The NeuroLeadership Institute hosts annual summits that we believe to be profound opportunities for leaders and change agents who want to make a difference in the lives of others. This year, we are lucky to have a NeuroLeadership Institute Summit coming to D.C., which is very exciting. Because the field of neuroleadership has so much to offer, we've asked Dr. David Rock, who's the director of the NeuroLeadership Institute, to join us today to share a bit about this year's event. A real treat for our Insight TV listeners today. I'd like to tell you just a little bit about David. David actually coined the term neuroleadership and is the founder and CEO of NeuroLeadership Group, which is a global consulting firm that operates in 24 different countries. He co-edits the NeuroLeadership Journal, which we are big fans of, and has a professional doctorate in the neuroscience of leadership. David is also the author of the business bestseller, Your Brain at Work, and Quiet Leadership, as well as the textbook, Coaching with the Brain in Mind. We've read all three, and we highly recommend all of them. He blogs for the Harvard Business Review, Fortune Magazine, Psychology Today, and the Huffington Post, and is quoted extensively in the media about leadership, organizational effectiveness, and the brain. We wonder when David sleeps, actually. David has really been a teacher and a mentor to both Paul and I over the past 3 years. We're very grateful for that. We both received our certification in brain-based coaching from the NeuroLeadership Group, and we are lucky to have David as one of our teachers throughout that journey. Although David is originally from Australia, he is joining us today from New York City, where he now lives with his wife and 2 beautiful daughters. David, welcome, and thank you so very much for taking the time to connect with us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks very much for the warm intro, Laurie and Paul. Good to be here with you.
Excellent. Thank you, David. I know we're on a tighter schedule, so we'll go ahead and jump right in. Is that okay?
Great.
Excellent. So, David, first question is, can you share with our listeners a little bit about what the Institute Summit is and why it's important?
Sorry, can you repeat that, Paul? You're a bit further away from the mic than Laurie. Just couldn't hear you completely.
Yeah, could you share with our listeners a little bit about what the NeuroLeadership Institute Summit is and why it's important?
Yeah, absolutely. We use the summit each year as a real focus point for launching out 3 breakthroughs every year. The Institute's now focused on finding these 3 breakthroughs a year that will really move the needle on how we understand leaders, how we improve leadership, how we select and grow talent. And we use the summit each year to share out these insights. And this year, as you mentioned, it's in DC. We're very excited to be there. And the 3 breakthroughs we're pushing out this year is firstly around transforming performance management. So we've been looking over the last 12 months with a team of researchers, including neuroscientists, looking at how can we find the significant breakthroughs in performance management so we don't keep talking about it for the next 10 years. Secondly is how do we authentically break bias? It turns out our understanding of how to mitigate bias is really off the mark when you look at the actual biology of what goes on. So breaking bias is the second one. And the third one is how do we accelerate wisdom? And with all of these, we're always coming from the biological perspective. What can we learn from understanding how things actually work under the surface? And so the summit is our opportunity to push this out, to share this with a local audience. We also share this with a national and international audience in other ways. But it's an important point. It's also an opportunity for researchers to connect. We have our research symposium, which is a full day this year for the first time in DC. There's a chance to really build the field overall.
Yeah, we're really excited about the agenda and the different arrangement of the summit this year. Can you talk a little bit more about how it's actually set up and how that applies to different groups and different levels of interest in neuroleadership?
Yeah, the summit's always evolved. We've had this goal from the very beginning of being the most brain-friendly large event in the world, and there's all sorts of design principles at work at every level. And one of the things is you try to have information relevant to the right audience. So the first day there's a pre-conference, which is really an introduction to the field for people who need to kind of catch up, get up to speed. We call it NeuroLeadership 101. And so it's really a summary of the 7 summits before. Then the main event is 2 days, and it's presented in 4 discussion topics a day. And these 4 chunks a day are actually broken into kind of chapters. Each of these 4 chunks is 90 minutes long, so you're not kind of jumping between topics really fast. So you've got these 90-minute chunks, and then within that we actually present in chapters where people have an opportunity to digest and really interact and discuss. So even though we've got a pretty good audience, we actually managed to enable the real embedding and integration of the ideas. So there's 2 days of that, and then there's a research symposium, which is a full day with a whole panel of neuroscientists and experts digging into specific topics, like what some of the really specific, more granular research and research methods and panel sessions on particular urgent topics. So yeah, so it's a day-long pre-conference, 2 main days where we dive into 8 big ideas in total, and then the post-summit research symposium overall.
Yeah, I love it. It sounds like there's a lot of options and choices for people who are interested in the field, depending on what level of interest that they have.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's always about things, finding things that are most relevant to you. And I think that people can come to one day, any one day of all of those, or 2 or 3 or even 4 if you're really following the field closely. And a surprising number of people, doing the whole 4 days as well.
Yeah. David, can you just help our listeners understand what really sets the NeuroLeadership Institute Summit apart from other conferences that focus on leadership development and human performance? Why would they want to choose this one?
Well, I mean, it just depends. If you are looking to go and sit in your seat and listen to the same sessions that get presented everywhere and hear things you've heard over and over, then you shouldn't come to the summit. if you're actually looking for new ideas and new research around developing leaders and growing talent, people tell us there's nothing that comes close. So if you're looking for research-led insights about improving our organizations from the perspective of leadership development, people management, if you're in HR, or OD, L&D, coaching, consulting, change, learning in any way, if you're in those spaces and you're actually looking for new insights, this is 2 solid days of just completely new insights. So it's a really unusual event. There are no kind of big name sessions by people who present the same topic over and over. These are all original research sessions where you're accessing the cutting edge data. And the bottom line, we have a team of researchers who work for a year to pull together a breakthrough session and present it out. And this is also the 3rd time we've presented this. We did one in Sydney and one in London in the last few months, and so we've also really honed and improved the session as well.
Yeah, so basically for people who are looking for cutting edge research based, that's a little bit out of the box, and that's how we see it as well.
Well, I don't think new research and actually is all that out of the box. I just think most conferences are incredibly formulaic and don't really invest in generating new findings. And most conferences, you don't have a control freak like me who's paranoid about every minute of every session being useful rather than just interesting.
Yeah.
And I keep control of the program very, very tightly, and every single piece of every single session has got to be actually valuable. Otherwise, why bother?
Exactly. Why bother? And I just want to hone in on that for our listeners. I think that that's what we have discovered with the summit is we do go to some interesting conferences and workshops, but they're not always useful. And this one really, really very much is. We use it every day, actually. From your perspective, David, what would you say is the most valuable thing that people are walking away with this year from the summit?
Well, I think this year, we've really gone in a new direction. For the last 7 summits, we've been building the field. In 2007, when we ran the first summit, we didn't even know if there was a field here to build. 2008, we started to lay down some of the foundations. 2009, 2010, 2011, we kind of shaped up what are the key ideas that neuroscience can contribute to. And we came to this structure of the field being about decision-making, problem-solving, regulating yourself, self-regulation, collaborating with others, and facilitating change. These are the 4 buckets or 4 domains of neuroleadership. So we've been kind of shaping up the field. What's different now that's really important is we think we've got enough of the field kind of framed up, and we're now saying let's go after the most urgent and most troublesome talent and leadership issues and actually move the needle on them. Take an example, the bias problem. Companies are spending billions of dollars just throwing money completely down the drain based on false understanding of how you mitigate bias. They're just completely misinformed about how biases work, and throwing away billions of dollars, but huge amounts of people hours in things that don't do anything. So I think theories are useful, but the theories are often interesting. But some theories are really, really useful, and our goal is to help people understand in a really different way how to, for example, how to mitigate bias there.
Yeah. Are you hearing of people implementing so far in the workplace some of the most recent findings from the previous 2 summits that took place in London and Sydney this year regarding these 3 areas?
Yeah, absolutely. Performance, bias, and wisdom are big topics, and it's the ideas have been quite have been resonating. I think of kind of aftershocks. When you have an insight, it sort of changes you, and you get sort of excited at the time. And it impacts you. But the real test is how many times you keep thinking about the idea, how many times it comes back to mind. We've heard from a lot of people from specific quarters, from organizations, large organizations that have, key people have had the insight that they now know what they need to know to, for example, really transform performance management. So we have some exciting breakthroughs happening there.
So the work is continuing and shifts are taking place just so far from the first 2. So you don't want to miss the one in DC. Excellent, yeah. And I would think that this is the 3rd one, so I'm gonna be biased and say that this one will be the best.
Well, we've definitely improved to the last, the first one, the second one, and our goal is to really kick it out of the park this time. The thing that we learn is every time we do something, we get better at it, and we've been improving the summit since 2007, and this will be, I think, a 8th or 9th event, and our goal is for it to be a really life-changing experience for everyone that's there. So it's one thing you can guarantee: we have the lowest ratio of people in the hallways at any event anyone's ever seen. So there's just no one in the hallways while the sessions are on, whereas most conferences you get a pretty high scattering of people out in the hallways. But
wow, that's a really interesting thing to note. Yeah,
we can attest to that.
That's actually quite telling. Okay, well.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with us, share with our listeners about the summit that we did?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to connect. Just, if you can't get along to the whole 2 days, think about the 101, the NeuroLeadership 101 event. It's a great self-contained session to really get up to speed about this field. Or if you're really following the research, if you're a student or really close to the research, get along to the research day. Otherwise, either or both of the 2 days is really the treat. I appreciate the opportunity to connect with you guys to share this out.
Yeah, we're so grateful. Thank you so much, David. This is a really good opportunity for people to get just an inside look from a real true thought leader in the field and the person who is really leading this effort. So thank you so much for being here with us today. Do you
My
need
pleasure.
to go?
I do need to jump off. Yeah, I'll
You need
jump
to
off.
jump
Thanks so
off,
much for your
okay.
interest, and hope to see many people at the event. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
David.
David.
You take care.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Well, we'd like to take a moment to extend David a very special thank you for taking a moment out of his busy schedule to give our listeners a little more insight into the 2013 NeuroLeadership Institute Summit, which is taking place this year on November 5th through November 8th at the Ronald Reagan International Trade Center here in Washington, D.C. For our listeners here, first we hope you found this episode both informative and useful. Registration for the summit is still open, and all the links for finding out additional information, speaker and panel lineups, as well as registration options can be found below on tv.zeropointleadership.com. Again, that's tv.zeropointleadership.com, as well as on our website, zeropointleadership.com/summit. And that again is zeropointleadership.com/summit. Both Lori and I will be there, and we look forward to seeing all of you there as well. Before we close today, we want to share some additional announcements with everyone. First, we're excited to share that neuroscientist Matthew Lieberman out of UCLA, and also one of the presenters at this year's summit, has recently released his book entitled Social, Why Our Brains Are Wired to Connect. We got our copy a few days ago, and it's a very fascinating read, so we encourage everyone to go out and get yours today. Next, join the NeuroLeadership Institute on Thursday, October 17th, as they're hosting a free webinar with Matthew Lieberman on the social brain. To register for this event, please go to their website, which is neuroleadership.org. Again, that's neuroleadership.org, and find a link to register under the calendar of events. And I think last is registration for our next NeuroLeader Masterclass, which begins on October 28th, is currently open. For more information about the NeuroLeader Masterclass, go to zeropointleadership.com/M as in Mike, C as in Charlie. Again, that's zeropointleadership.com/MC. And I think that's about it. Lori, do you have anything else to add?
No, I think we can go ahead and close this episode. I want to thank again Dr. David Rock and all of our listeners. This concludes today's episode of Insight TV, Signals from the Non-Conscious. Stay tuned for our next episode. And in the meantime, may you have many more fascinating insights that solve your most complex problems. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.